Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Soul Focused Radio. This is your host, Martin Friedman, and I am so excited to be joined once again by Jahn. Daniel, how you doing?
Man, I'm doing well, Martin. I'm happy to be back.
We're happy to have you. How's how things in Seattle area? I know you're in the east side, right?
Yeah, well, I live on the west side. I'm down
Oh,
in
you
White
do.
Center. Yeah.
Okay.
But my business is on the east side. But no, it's good, man. We had a bunch of sun, and then we had a bunch of rain, which is more normal for us. But looking like the sun's going to come out the next few days, so I'm happy about that. It means I got to hit the yard again and and prep.
Right.
I'm actually, you know what? I'll tell you what. I'm looking forward to like some barbecues this summer, man. After
Nice.
after
Nice.
last year, we missed out on a year. I'm looking at okay,
Yes.
I got to get my grilling game
Nice.
on.
Nice. Nice. That's exciting. Wish I still lived close by. I'd have to stop by. But yeah, this is the time of year. I was just talking to Dustin about this. This is the time of year that I always had a hard time living in Seattle because it's June and a lot of these days are like 60 and rainy, and I'm like looking at the rest of the country, and the rest of the country's in the 70s and 80s. So I always
Mm.
struggled. I always struggled with this. This was the hardest time of year to live in Seattle. Now, once Fourth of July hits, once that summer hits, it's the nicest place in the world. But
Yeah,
this
man.
June was always a rough month for me.
I'll tell you, I'm very concerned about climate change.
Yeah,
And that being said, it's changed the weather in Seattle here, man. We get
right.
a night. The spring is a little more dry than normal. So I mean, you remember how it was always like, man, it rained all through June, and
Yes, yes.
like you said, right up to the 4th of July. But man, the last several years, I mean, I honestly I can't remember the last time where we had a rainy May and June.
Mm,
So
mm.
it's something. It'll be one or the other.
Right, right,
But
right.
now, I mean, it's pretty nice out here. But grand scheme of things, I know that's probably because our whole planet's warming up, which ain't
Oh
good.
my gosh. Yeah, no, it's really not. It's really not. But we got to live in the moment, right? We got to live in the moment.
Yeah, man.
So, yeah, so let's jump back into what we were talking about last time. I really appreciated, you sharing your story with us, your life story, and really appreciated you sharing the story what happened when you were on that traveling team in baseball, and your experiences at UW and all of that. Towards the end of the last podcast, you were really starting to talk about, how when you came to Soul Focus Group Friends and Family Healing from Racism, I guess that's probably what, 3-4 months ago now, it really resonated with you. And, just talk about like, what was that spark? What was the spark that went off for you? Cause I saw a spark go off in you, you got fired up, and you just like, let's go. Right. Let's go.
Yeah, yeah.
So what was that spark for you?
Well, there's a couple of things, and I think it's been 5 months now. I
Wow.
think it was
Wow.
early this year. But I think the first thing was, I think I mentioned it in the first podcast we did. But I, after George Floyd, I had more conversation than I've ever had in and around this topic. And by about the fall, I was realizing that something wasn't quite right. So
Mhm.
most of the time, the conversations that I had had for the previous 20 years, it was in and around the effects of systemic racism, on practices, policies, procedures, on people of color, on a little bit about a bias and privilege and allyship and things like that. And so they were pretty commonplace to me. But by the time I got to the fall, before I connected with you all, after all these conversations I'm having, something still wasn't quite sitting with me in terms of making transformation and change, like we mentioned. And the thing I think that I realized was that it was the why was missing in a lot of these conversations. So I was finding that. Well, two things. One was the why was not there, where people just, if they didn't truly believe that they would live a more fulfilled life, a better life, if we ended
Mhm.
racism, no matter what
Right.
color their skin was, then I didn't see that deep, meaningful action or even the willingness to do some difficult thinking about the topic. They kind of got to a place where it's like, yeah, I don't like racism. I don't like bigotry, and I don't want it in our society. But as soon as it came down to this place of kind of the introspection of looking at, okay, how is their life been impacted in a multitude of ways, they couldn't quite get through it. And so if they didn't have people of color in their life, if they didn't have just a vested interest in some form or fashion in changing things, they kind of shut down a little bit and backed off. And so
Mm.
that was one part. And then the other part was that, I had spent months talking about positionality and bias and how we see the world and our racial lens, and essentially asking white folks to take a hard look at their behaviors, their family history, their biases. And the reality was is that, like, man, I didn't really look deep at my own. And so when I
Mm.
started thinking, like, okay, man, this is not an easy thing to do. And
Mm.
we're asking people who have essentially been programmed to ignore issues of race because they don't see how issues of race benefit or them, or even affect their families. And so now we're asking them to go a little bit deeper, and and with every step that they take to really to look at their bias and their habits. And I said, okay, well, man, if it's this hard for me to do, and
Mm.
I've been thinking about this stuff since I connected with you guys with the People's Institute 25 years ago.
Right.
If it's this hard for me to do it, then this is, we've got to look a little bit more deeply at this and what we can do to help people along the way and help to understand this. Because doing difficult, as a coach, I mean, I'm asking people to do difficult things all the time, so I know what's required and what it takes. And so then what happened is I stumbled on you guys, and to hear
Mm.
your presentation of all of us, white, yellow, red, brown, black, does not matter, all of us need to heal, and to be able to identify the ways that we need to heal, and how racism has damaged our relationships and it severed our connections to each other. It just, for me, it really resonated with me, and it was a breath of fresh air to hear folks, experts like yourselves, just discussing some of the things that I was struggling with, after doing
Mm.
all of this deep diving into this work.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate that. And one of the things I kind of sensed from you is, given your path around, being a performance, specialist with people, and basically, yeah, no, I really appreciate that. And one of the things I kind of sensed from you is, given your path around, being a performance, specialist with people, and basically your profession, and in many ways your life is dedicated to helping people transform into what they want to be. Would you say that's a pretty accurate assessment of what you do?
Oh, 100%.
And get to the next
100%.
level too, right? Transform
Mm-hmm.
and get to the next level.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
And so what I'm hearing from you is that what resonated with you with the soul focus group approach around healing from racism is that we're really in a similar business, if you will, right? Like we really want to help people truly transform. We have gotten so good, Daniel, at just describing the problem of racism. Brilliant. We are brilliant beyond measure at describing the problem.
Right. Right.
We have been brilliant at just being against it, but we have not been good at transforming long-term sustainable transformation, which is like that's what you do. And so as I'm listening to you, I'm like, I bet you a lot of that spark and that connection was this is an approach that mirrors what you do, with human beings.
Right, right, right. Yeah, I mean, and you guys were, you talk so much about personal empowerment and overcoming obstacles and difficulties, and like you said, achieving against odds. I mean, it's really, it's the same language. And what I saw, before I ran into you guys, was that, yeah, people need to be empowered to do difficult things, and they need to be inspired and motivated and pushed and coached and taught and supported. And so that was the first time that I'd seen the integration of the description of the problem, how we got here, and what to do about it, in a way that all of, for folks on the ground, who are just, trying to live their lives and pay their bills and raise their kids, the things that they can do to help, shape and create the kind of world that we'd like to see.
Absolutely, right. And as I'm listening to you, I'm thinking that, oh, another similarity is like we have to be able to see it. You have to be able to vision it, right? So like you can't, whether you're working with somebody on up in their level in terms of, physical performance, athletic performance, or just even just being more fit for life, whatever it is that you're doing, you have the first part is you have to get people to envision themselves at that next level,
Yeah.
right? And it's the same thing with us. Like that's what we've been missing is in the quote unquote anti-racist world, we've been missing the vision of what it
Hmm.
looks like when racism is gone. We don't spend
Hmm.
time on that. We just spend time on the fight, and that would never work in what you do, and it hasn't worked in what we do either. In this, I mean, when I say what we do, I mean in the world of anti-racism.
Oh, 100%, man. And I'll give you a nice little story. So I had an incredible strength coach as an athlete at the University of Washington, and he's really the one that inspired me to take this path. And the guy was huge. Okay, he's 61 now. Back then, this was 20 some years ago. So, but he's 61 now and just benched 900 pounds at 61 years old. Yeah, I mean, the guy, which is just incredible, right? The dude, he was huge, he was intimidating, and he was an incredible coach, an incredible leader and teacher, and we really connected well. And so we had to do in our off-season conditioning program, we had to do, something called mat drills. Which were just combination of conditioning and calisthenics and really difficult team oriented exercise that pushed your mind and your body to the edge. And so twice a week, we'd lift 3 times a week, and then twice a week, we would meet to do these kinds of mat drills. And so one day, we're when we would come to these conditioning sessions just ready. I mean, we're like scared, excited, nervous, all of that. And so he brings us up to a little foyer in the pavilion, and he says, "Okay, everybody's going to lay down on your back, and I want you all to close your eyes, and I just want you to visualize what success means to you." And I'm a freshman in college. All I'm trying to do is hang on, just like work out as hard as I can and do what I can. And then here is this huge, massive strength coach who is just been pounding us. That he asks us to lie down, close our eyes, and visualize success. And I didn't really internalize the power of what he asked us to do until later. I mean, I think I was already a junior. I might have started coaching already and realized that, like, man, our mind is the most powerful tool we have when it comes to achievement. And for someone who is dead set on, whose life work is in a weight room and it's moving iron, for him to stop all of that and say, look, what we need to be able to do is step back for a moment and visualize ourselves having success, or all of this iron pushing and this speed work and everything we're doing ain't going to help. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because we can't see where we're going. And so I've always had that in the back of my mind. And when you mentioned visualizing a world without racism, and for me, I rarely actually really did it, and took the time to think about what would our society look like if racism was not there. How would people act? How would we talk? How would we greet each other? What would parties be like? What would work be like? How would business operate? What would be taught in schools? How would we look at each other? Just down to every little bit about it. I hadn't done it. And so I think, that was another part of your workshop that helped me take a step back and think about what it was that I was doing on a day to day basis that could, promote the kind of world that I wanted to see. And that was one thing I really needed to do. Is that visualization piece is big, man.
So I think you know me well enough to know what my follow up question is. So what does that look like? What since you've been doing it, right? So since you've started to do it, what does that look like for you now? What are you starting to visualize when you visualize a world without racism?
Yeah, well, a few things. The first thing that I tend to go back to is is feeling. I think we are beings that are driven by emotion and our senses. And when there was several years ago, me and my family went to Portugal. And when I was in Portugal, it was the first time that I felt as a black man that I was not a threat to a bunch of white people that I was around. And it was a very unique and different experience for me. Now, issues of race are there, of course, and I don't know their society real well. I don't know the ins and outs, so I'm not sure exactly what happens there. But when I was there for the week that I was there, in the dark alleyways, walking behind white people, they didn't worry about the fact that I was behind them. They didn't look back with kind of a timid or nervous look. They did. If I was standing in line, they didn't feel the need to kind of check me out. I didn't. I had to adjust myself because I'm so used to that stereotype threat and whistling Vivaldi, right? I'm so used to that, and it's become so much a part of who I am that I had to stop and try to figure out what is different about here. What feels different? This is very strange, but at the same time, it was. I mean, man, it was liberating. It was just a huge load. I felt like there was a huge load off my shoulders, to be honest, man. It was just like, dang, I can just kind of live and be free and not be worried about people being worried about me. And so that feeling always comes back to me as what it might look like if we lived in a society that had no racism. So, and then there's other parts to it as well, because I think that we have to be honest about the fact that we're trying to create a society in which people interact with each other, engage with each other, and do so in a way that is open and like as if we're all family, and we aren't disconnected at all. But at the same time, we're making up for 375 years of racial trauma and segregation and slavery and all of these things that affect our society today. So we're trying to do them simultaneously. So I think that there's kind of there's two things that are happening, right? We're talking about how to move forward, we're talking about how to address the past. So for me, addressing the past, I think, has to manifest in policy, procedure, practice, law, those kinds of things. But then how do we engage with each other? Do we see each other's children as our own children? Can we show up? Can we show up at a party with 100% of the people with a different skin tone than ours and feel comfortable engaging, with them at all times and at all levels? Do we look at each other as loving family? And so I love what you guys talk about, our connection to humanity and our connection to each other, which is, to me, I mean, leading, like I think you mentioned it once in our conversation, was leading with love. Do we are we able to lead into any engagement or interaction, with love? And when we disagree and when there's conflict, is there any notion of race involved in that conflict? So what I mean is, if I get into a heated argument with somebody of a different racial background, was there any point in time where their racial background crossed my mind? Right? There shouldn't be. There shouldn't be. I want to live in a world where it don't matter. Yeah, I'm going to have conflict with people. I'm not going to agree with everybody. Okay, sometimes we will argue. Sometimes there'll be accidents. Sometimes there are all kinds of things will happen. That's what happens in a society. But can we do it without ever worrying or thinking about or even considering the person's race? So I mean, those are just some of the things that pop up for me. I mean, I don't know. What about you?
What about me? Well, I wanted to give like a little smart aleck answer first and say I can't imagine a world without racism. but I mean, what I think about is I just think about how the ease, right? Like there to me, I think it would just be so much more restful for all of us. I think racism has us so tense, all of us so tense. And no matter kind of quote unquote like what side you fall on it, everybody's tense and just like waiting to pounce, on the other side. And just like, we don't listen to each other anymore. We're just all we're doing is just, formulating our arguments. That I don't know if you're a fan of the Who, but for some reason the Who came to my mind over the last week, and there's a song called "Won't Get Fooled Again," and it says the parting on the left is the same as the parting on the right, and the new boss the same as the old boss. And it's what it just made me think about is that, you know, for those of us that would put ourselves more on the left, there's a lot of the tactics that are used, that aren't, to me, they're not what we should be using, because it's still a lot of hate, it's a lot of domination, it's fear based, it's wanting to like not even listen to other people if we disagree with them.
Right.
So I just think about like at least around
Hmm.
racism that would be gone. I also believe that once racism is gone, a world without racism is an entree into a world without patriarchy, a world without regressive capitalism that punishes one group of people. So, I think about the entree into ease, relaxation, and in many ways rest. Like it'll just be so much more of a restful world. I think of so many people in my life that just talk to me almost on a daily basis about how tired they are. People of color, and I just think about it. And I look at white folks and, for those of us that have consciousness around race, we're all exhausted too. So that's the first thing that comes to my mind. I could talk about incarceration would, the idea of incarceration would totally shift. There's just so much that would shift. And also the other thing that comes to mind is a world without racism is a much more brilliant world.
Right.
Think about all the brilliance that we've lost because of kids of color who haven't been born
Mm.
because of infant mortality rates.
Right.
Think about all the brilliance we've lost because of all of the people of color, especially black folks, black men who are locked up right now,
Right.
who could be fixing it, helping us fix this stuff.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So yeah, those are the things that come to my mind for
And
sure.
I mean, man, on top of that, like you just sparked something in my mind. There's a racially equitable society too, right? Where, I mean, our where everything in our society is pretty much representative of the populations of who lives here, and we don't see these huge disparities.
It would be a true meritocracy. Like coming from the world of athletics, it'd be like, what if one team, you're a baseball player. Like, what if one team got to start every inning with a man on third base?
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
it'd be a lot easier for that team.
Yeah.
you
Yep.
know, I mean,
Uh-huh.
I mean, look at what's happened in Major League Baseball. Since
Hmm.
the pandemic year, where they started to extra innings. Now, the away team gets a man on second base,
Hmm.
and the
Hmm.
percentage of times that they win the game now has gone up. I don't know the
Right.
percentages; I haven't studied it, but I remember hearing or reading something that said the percentage of away teams that have won the game has gone up since they put a man on second. That's what relative advantage for white folks has done. So we would actually
Right.
get to experience what true meritocracy is.
Right. Right.
What folks, and also and Daniel, I think it would be less competitive. I think the current state is a very competitive state, and I don't mean like healthy competition, but as we talk about like ruthless competition or toxic competition.
Hmm. You're right. 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 I mean, and just like think about this. Think about it, it's one thing to be playing against a team that starts every game with somebody on third base, but what if there was no, what if there weren't two different teams playing against each other? What if we're all on the same team? What if we can create a more cooperative economy? I mean, instead of it, it's all cutthroat. I mean, to me, it's a paradigm shift in realizing that, like, man, we make each other better. Okay, we make each other stronger. We don't need to, this ain't about me or you. This not a zero sum game. And that's another thing that I see every day. I mean, I'm blessed to be in a situation where everything, most of my day is surrounded by positivity, and people working together. I see people at their most vulnerable and their most empowered, and seeing them all the way through it. And I see people encouraging each other, and getting excited with each other, and overcoming the odds, and setting goals and reaching them. And get fighting and scratching and clawing to be their best. I see that every single day. And so for me, that's the reality that I'm living in, and that's what I believe. If I see it every day, dude, I've been doing this 23 years, okay? And I've seen it thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of times, Martin. And so to me, I know more people are capable of this. I know it doesn't have to just be surrounded, it doesn't have to just follow performance training for sport. I believe that we have the potential to support each other, strengthen each other, and to really take life on the way that people do in a weight room every day.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you 100%, right? That has to be the model, and it hasn't been. And we've been convinced to be in competition with each other. That's an external idea where that's been put on us, and we've believed it. And I just keep going back to in order to lift that weight, in order to do that next set of whatever it is that you're working with folks on. Again, going back to the idea, we say at Soul Focus Group, we say power is the ability to see yourself create the reality you want for yourself, right? That's what real power is. Real power, personal power. Real personal power is when you can see yourself with the ability to create what you want. I don't know if I've ever told you the story or not, but one of the most important pieces for me in terms of my physical health and really mental health too, because I was really miserable, extremely overweight, super depressed, on antidepressants, on blood pressure medication, and it was the decision to try martial arts. And the martial arts instructor, he told me, he said, just give me 3 months. Just don't quit for 3 months. That's all I ask. And I can't tell you, man. I mean, like, I'm not lying. The first couple days, that first week, I was like literally almost in tears when I was done
Mm-hmm.
because I had never asked my body to do those things.
Mm-hmm.
And also, I just never, I'm a bigger guy, but I had never really, I just never saw myself, defending myself really like that. I can't really explain it, but just just for a lot of reasons actually, But but what I get now that he was doing is what he was getting me to do wasn't just to get my body in better shape so I wasn't so exhausted, but it was so I could see myself doing the things because I wasn't going to see it in a week or two. I wasn't gonna my the way I struck, the way I kicked, the way I did everything that they were asking me to do was not going to work for me to see myself being successful after just a week or two or even a month or two. It took 3 months for me to be able to see myself as a practicing martial artist. And I think that's the piece that we miss. We miss the fact that we have to be able to see ourselves in this new world. And right now, I'd say the majority of people can't. I'm going to tell you something that's going to depress you, and I'm going to say it from a hopeful place. But I just recently was training in person with some young people, and we asked how many people thought that racism would end in their lifetime. And I think maybe 3 to 5 people out of 40 kids between seventh and 12th grade raised their hand. You know, now,
Yeah, yeah, that doesn't surprise me.
yeah, I'm sure it doesn't. It's depressing, but the hopeful piece is that, and actually I'm kind of kicking myself now because that's how we should have closed out. We should have closed out the training by asking them to raise their hands again. And I know just from kids coming up and talking to us that number went up a lot. And that's why I'm
Yeah,
hopeful
yeah.
because we just have not framed this stuff right. We haven't framed it right yet. So, and I appreciate you because I know that, the people that you have exposure to and impact on are people that a lot of us might not see, especially those of us that are in the more progressive or anti-racist world. You see a lot of people that would be considered more more mainstream white folks. And so the fact that you have their ear and that they trust you and they see that you can help them transform in other ways, that's so hopeful to me that you can now also, I know you've been doing it for a minute, but I know you can also now really work transformationally with them around seeing racism in a whole different light too, and their ability to help end it. That's one of the things that's most exciting to me about you being involved in this.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think we need all voices, right? I mean, I think that everything we're all very different, and we have different experiences, and but we're all, we have tons of similarities, and so I think that certain things that resonate and sit well with some people may not sit well with others. So I have a way of addressing, racism and what I've learned, and I have a way that I share, and it'll work with some folks, and it may not work with other folks, and that's why I think that we need everybody involved, and we need everybody participating in this conversation. But man, I appreciate you saying that, and I'm really enjoying it. And I'll tell you, it's these conversations have become easier and easier the more I know and understand and learn. And I'd share that with everybody because I think so many folks are intimidated about having these conversations because a lot of them don't know much about it. They haven't had these conversations before. They haven't thought outside the box. They haven't, they don't know a lot about our history. They haven't been forced to engage and interact with people who think differently or have had different racial experiences. So, I just know the more I learn, the more I connect with you guys, and the more I challenge myself, and other people challenge me, and the more conversation I have, the easier it becomes, and the more enjoyable it becomes. But yeah, so I appreciate you and what you guys are doing, and I'm a fan, and I always will be, man.
And now a part of the team too, part of
Yeah,
the team
yeah,
too. And I'm
for
realizing as
sure.
you're talking that the reason why I think you connected so quickly and easily with us is because really that's what you do. You already are working on human solidarity. That's you want people to be connected. You want people to renew their solidarity, and you do that by having a common goal and a common purpose. And so it just makes so much sense, that we're on the same team now, and excited to have you, man. Excited, and thank you for taking the time to to share your story and to share your thoughts and your feelings with us and our listeners.
Man, well, I sure appreciate it, Martin, and I'm
Yes,
very excited to be connected with you guys. Anything I can do to help anybody else out, I'm all for it. And
yeah,
anytime you want to talk on a podcast or anywhere else, bro, I'm in.
yeah. Well, we'll keep it going for sure. And if you want to plug anything that you do right now, you want to give a little plug for what you do before we close out.
Yeah, I'm gonna plug the Soul Focus Group. Okay, that's what I'm
Oh,
gonna
there you
plug.
go. There you
And
go.
you
Good,
shoot,
good
man.
job.
You
Good
guys
job.
are the ones who are kicking me down the road here, bro. Okay,
I
this is a
understand. I
beautiful
understand.
thing,
Well,
man. So I'm just a squirrel, bro. I'm just a squirrel.
yeah. Well, I will tell people that if they look up Daniel John, Jahn, if you're interested in performance, performance work, and performance training. So I'll just tell them, I'll give you a plug if you don't want to do it.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, I am.
so
I do have these conversations on Instagram. I've never been a social media guy, but after all of this went down last year, I figured that it'd probably be good to talk to people. So, just yeah, Instagram. I'm essentially just trying to have some more conversations to put out some more material so people feel little more comfortable with it.
beautiful, beautiful. All right. Well, I want to thank you again. I want to thank everybody for listening. We love that you come on this journey with us and get to know our people and what we do. We thank you very much. We ask you to keep listening to our podcast on all the platforms that they're available on. Go to our website, soulfocusgroup.com. A lot of exciting and new things are being put up there every day, including some podcasts that you won't find on iTunes, Android, or Spotify anymore. These are sort of our special podcasts that are just for our subscribers off of our website. So please come and take a look at everything that we're doing. Know that we love you, we care about you, and more than anything, we ask that you stay safe, stay sane, stay well, and stay soul